Ladies and Mental Gen, today is October 8th, 2013. And this is the KNKL Show, episode 102. I'm your host, Keenan Lafferty, and this is the show where we learn to be better artists. Today we are going to be talking about layer management. How to create your layers and sandwich them properly so that they can help you, let the computer do all the work, and let Photoshop not aggravate you to the point where you want to literally punch it in the face. Alright, but before we get into that, we need to take a stroll down the lovely lane because we have this more amazing art being submitted to the Facebook. And I wanted to say thank you to everyone who has been submitting their stuff as usual. And for those of you who are still hiding away in the shell of your own broodiness, right? Please come out and please submit your awesome art to the KNKL Facebook page because you get cute things like this from Simon, this cute little girl. Gotta love that. I don't know what this thing is though. Is that like some sort of ghost ferret? It seriously looks like a ghost ferret. He doesn't say what it is, so I don't know. It is cute though. So anyway, oh, we got this awesome video here. I gotta go check that out afterwards. And with that, yeah, do that stuff. Do Facebook stuff. I usually talk about Twitter too, but I'll just do that another time. All right, so yes, we're gonna be talking about layer management. Now we're going to be talking about basically the process that I went through and the layer setup that I went through to create this painting right here, which is Tristana. I was working on this all throughout the last week and I finished it, and a lot of people have been asking me just like a little bit of process and just kind of a little bit more of the technical stuff that goes into creating a piece like this. So yes, today I want to talk about that. So the first thing that I want to speak to you guys with is what is my resolution when I create a new piece like this. And a big thing that I've really enjoyed doing, and this is something that I want to kind of put out there for other artists that are creating, you know, especially like fan art and all this stuff, like it's just a good idea to set your measurements to 16 inches by 9 inches, and then you can do 200, 300 pixels per inch, you know, DPI, right? I usually like to go for 300 because it's just really nice and it gives you a nice big canvas to work with. And the other reason why I like 16 by 9, that ratio, is because it makes a perfect desktop wallpaper when you're all done with it. So if somebody really likes your art, they can easily just place it onto their desktop, and not only does it make them happy, but all their friends that come and check it out, they're like, oh, hey, who drew that? And then they'll be like, oh, this awesome artist, so you got it, and then they'll show you, or they'll show them your DeviantArt page. So definitely do that, 16 by 9. All right, guys. So yeah, I want to talk about a couple things today, actually. And one of them is just how I go about starting a sketch. Just how I go about starting a sketch. And an important thing having to do with layers is I'm going to teach you about a very handy tool called Ctrl J. Ctrl J. And the reason why Ctrl J is awesome is because say you're going through this little thing right here. Say you're going into this, you're sketching out your Tristana and everything, right? And you're just having a grand old time, you know, you're just like putting a little bit of blush on the cheeks, you know, make her eyebrows nice and big and give her a little mustache and all that stuff. And then say you want to go back, but you only have like 5 history states. So you can only go back to a certain point and you still got these giant eyebrows and like half a mustache. That would be terrible, right? But what's really nice is before you embark on something like this, before you embark on making any major changes while you're sketching, I really, really like to hit Ctrl J. And what that does is it takes the current layer that you're working on and it just simply duplicates it. And then you can just hit that little eyeball, you just poke that thing right in the eye. And then now you have a complete duplicate of your layer behind. So that way, if you make all these changes to it, right? And then you decide, oh no, I want to go back to what it was, or I want to compare the face, or whatever. I want to compare the bushiness of the eyebrow to what I had before. You can simply just click this eye off and click that eye back on, right? So then you can kind of do one of those things. And you can make sure that it looks good. Okay, so that's the first thing, Ctrl J. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of walk you through the layers that I used while I was doing this. Okay? So you can see basically all the times that I hit Ctrl J. So that was the first one. Actually, no, wait, this was the first one. This was the first one where I just drew kind of the face and kind of the angle of it. And the reason why I usually tell people to not draw off of the head, right? I say don't draw the head first But in this case, I just had like a clear idea of the angle that I wanted the head to be at, that I just very quickly sketched it down. And what I want to show you guys today is how you can actually draw off of a head. Say you have like an idea where you want to draw the head like this, but then you, obviously you want to make sure that the body has a lot of motion in it too. What I did was I simply sketched right up here. This is because the head is at the same angle, right? But then I also drew the body in this like smaller, almost stick figure type of shape thing, right? So I can make sure that I got all of the action lines in there, right? But I'm not drawing the head, right? I didn't draw this head and then try to like draw the rest of the body, like, okay, here's her arm, and then here's the rest of the body, and then, oh, okay, maybe the leg will go like that. Like, I already knew what I was trying to match it to. I was trying to match it to this thing right up here. So that's really, really handy when you're doing those types of things. All right, so let's move on up to, let's go ahead and move on up to the next one. Okay, so this is another idea of just a quick thing that I had, a quick idea that I had. I wanted to try it out and just kind of lay it down. Again, I was drawing in very, very simple shapes, and I didn't end up liking that one. Okay, so here's what I'm doing now. Now I'm just refining things. I'm refining things, and I'm going to go from this to this. And basically, the only differences between these two things are, I don't even know what the difference between those two things are. I can barely see it. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so here's what I'm talking about. This is especially important when you're doing faces, because I will simply just, I'll kind of click back to this one. I always believe that there's something that's captured in the beginning. In the beginning where you draw the face and the emotion and all that stuff, I believe that there's something captured that if you're not careful and you work too far ahead, you'll lose the original emotion or the original expression. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of, I've duplicated the layer, I've made the changes, and I'm going back and checking it. Okay? Next up, same thing, probably just some small changes maybe to the boots. Or not. Maybe something with the hand, I don't know. Something small, whatever it was. Alright, so now I'm moving into, another thing that I really like to do is make sure that, of course, you're working with your lines on a separate layer, right? Don't draw your lines on the background. Don't draw your lines on the background, because that means that it's like the lines are right on top of a white thing, and then you can't drop any colors behind them. I almost think of it as like an animation stencil, so or an animation cell. So you want to have the lines up front, and then you paint behind the lines to create your color. So next up, okay, see? So now we're going into the face, and I Ctrl J'd it because I wanted to make sure to compare it to that, make sure I wasn't losing anything. Next up, just more refinement of the lines. I feel like once I get past the face, I can be a little bit more lenient with stuff, but who knows? Maybe there's like a special, maybe I'm trying to make sure I don't lose some sort of detail in the bullets, or, like in this little handguard thing. Who knows? Moving on. Let's see, yeah. So, yeah, these are all just refinement layers. Refinement. More refinement. More. I was having so much trouble with these legs down here. I was having so much trouble trying to figure out how her feet, like, were supposed to be pointing, right? Because they looked like they were both, like, coming inward. And at first I thought that might be kind of cute, but it ended up just looking kind of, like, unsure and unconfident. So eventually what I ended up doing was I tilted the foot out just a little bit more here. You can see I'm moving it just a little bit further out. But what I end up doing is I turn it completely the other way, so her foot is pointing exactly where she's going to be shooting, and it ended up looking really, really cool. And that's what it is right there. So that's what we got. We got the foot pointed out that way, and this, again, this was a big challenge because I was trying to make sure that she looked like she wasn't going to topple over either. Just having some trouble like positioning the feet. So that's another good reason to do the Ctrl J method. So you can compare and contrast the feet. Compare and contrast feet, compare and contrast, just any changes that you make to it. Especially in the face. I always do it like very, very heavily during the face time. Okay, so that takes care of line work. Let's go ahead and move into color. Okay. All right. Very, very good. Very good. Oh, you guys are asking some questions over here. Someone's asking, Keenan, would you like an idea for a future stream? I was thinking, we all have our own drawing process, so I figured, why don't we compare our processes with a pro and have the viewers ask questions about said process? Oh, yeah, I suppose so. They're talking about kind of like a contest type thing where people submit things and then I kind of draw it in my own style or something. You guys can compare and contrast. I think that would be pretty cool. I try to stay away from... That sounds like a masked critique. That sounds like you're trying to trick me. You're trying to trick me into doing a critique for you. I know. I know what you're after. I like to do contests and stuff, but I try to just show my process, right, as opposed to telling people, hey, this is the way that you should do it. You know? But anyway, that's another conversation for another time, and we're not even doing question catapults. We're not even doing that yet. Okay, moving on. Okay, guys, so once your line work is done, let's talk about the next step. Because something that I used to do a lot, very much, even while I was working at Riot full-time, was when I wanted to go in and mask a character, I'd take, my ink brush or whatever, and then I'd pick out, my gray, and then I'd go through here, I'd go through the character, and I'd start doing this, right? So we gotta mask the character, it takes time, right? And I'd start doing this, I'm like, oh, I messed up a little bit there, and I have to go back and clean that up. And then I wouldn't be using the ink brush, so I'd have to like press really hard, and there would be like little fragments of the edge of the mask being there, and it's really annoying. It strained my wrist to the point where it felt like it was going to fall off. And then I asked myself, is there a better way to do this? Is there a quicker way to get this just the silhouette mask down? And I found out the answer was yes. So the secret is, basically, with your line work, when you're ready to start doing your mask, is make sure that you go around your lines, and it doesn't matter what is within them. It doesn't matter what's happening here, right? What matters is what's happening outside. The outside edges and the outside silhouettes of your lines must be clean, like so. So basically, you take a ink brush, and you just go around all the edges of your drawing, and this one's already been fairly prepared. You can still see there's parts that aren't perfect, but they don't need to be necessarily like super fine. It's just you got to make sure that try to keep away from any like just kind of like dirtiness. Like, see, this is probably what the line on the inside here, that's what it looked like on the outside before. But now I'm just kind of coming in and trimming it away so that way the outsides are nice and clean. And the strange thing about this is when you do this, I swear, like there's something about just having clean edges on shapes and characters that makes it look more professional and more clean, even though the insides can be as crazy and as kind of rough as you want them to be. And we'll go more into that in just a minute. I'm gonna put a note for that because we need to go into that. Okay, so once the outside edges of your character are all cleaned up, what you're gonna want to do is take your magical pixie brush, or your magical fairy godmother wand tool, W for those of you who like shortcuts, and you just click on the outside of your character. And I usually like to set my tolerance to about 40. I think that's a good thing to set it at. Make sure you also have contiguous selected, otherwise what you're going to get is this. It selects like everything and it's just like really messy and you don't want that. So select contiguous so you get just the outside of your character. Okay? Now what you're going to do is you're going to hit Shift Ctrl I, and I'm going to make a new layer for this just because I feel awesome whenever I write it down, so you never forget it. Never forget Shift Ctrl I. Okay? What does Shift Ctrl do? What does Shift Ctrl I do, you say? Well, let's try it out. Whoa. Doesn't look like much, but what you just did was you imploded the selection, and now it is selecting the perfect silhouette of your character. And you probably just saved yourself about 10 to 15 minutes of hand strain and annoyance and all that good stuff. Okay, so once you're done with that, you just create a new layer, right? And I like to call it character mask. You can call it silhouette mask, whatever floats your boat. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go right up here. I usually like to pick just like a gray, like a mid-tone gray. Really doesn't matter what you pick, just a kind of a darker color. And we're going to go to is up here. I'll move this down so you can actually see. We're going to go to Edit, Fill, or Shift F5 for those of you who like shortcuts. And then you're going to choose foreground color, yes. And then voila! You have a perfect silhouette character mask. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is awesome. Okay, so moving on, what we're going to be doing next is I'm going to talk to you guys about doing inside layers. Or, basically your layer compositions and your layer management that is going to be happening within the silhouette. Okay? And we're going to be talking about clipping masks. Clipping masks are a godsend and probably one of the coolest features in Photoshop, I would say. So, let's go ahead and jump right on into that, shall we? So the first thing I want to talk about is, the first thing I want to do is actually delete this group because that was going to be the other one. I think, yes it was. Okay, so let's talk about masks, or clipping masks and what they do for you. Clipping masks and you. So let's call this hair. Let's say we wanted to paint Riot Girl Tristana this time around, okay? And we want to start painting pink on her hair. So you might look at this and be like, oh, well, what about all these, things that are going to come out the edges and painting outside the lines and all that stuff? Well, that is where clipping masks come in, and this is where you are going to have your mind blown, because basically what this means is, let me show you. Okay, so to create a clipping mask, there's two ways to do it. I think one of the ways is to go to Layer, then you go down to Create Clipping Mask, Alt Ctrl G, and watch what happens. Whoa! Did you see that? The computer just did all the work for you. It just totally just said, you're not going outside of the lines because you laid down this mask right here. This mask represents the silhouette, or the clipping mask, I guess, that you want to work with, and any layer that you create over top of it, that you clip back to it, it will not go outside of it. So think of it as a stencil. Think of this, the gray, is your stencil, and anything you place over top of it, and then you clip back to it, it will automatically cut off the edges. Another easy way to do this is to simply hold Alt and click between the layers, right? So you can click the layer back like this. See that little icon that appears when I hit Alt? Click between them, and then it automatically clips it back. And now what this means a couple things. Unfortunately, it doesn't just like clip everything on the inside either. So basically anything on the inside of the character you have to be kind of careful with. However, there is something else that's very cool about this. And this is where layer management comes in. Layer management and you. Basically what happens is, you can be as crazy as you want on the outsides of the lines, or when it's on the silhouettes of the character, right? You can go as crazy as you want out here. See, I'm painting, it's not showing up. But as soon as you go inside, it's like, oh no, and then you go back. But if you do a good job, if you're a good little boy or girl, right, Santa will bring you a special gift in the form of ease of coloring for the rest of your drawing. And let me explain why. So say you do a really good job on the inside of the hairlines here, okay? Say you do a really good job on the insides of this hair. Now basically what you do, and this is kind of a cool way to shortcut the process, go back to, click back on your character mask, and you're going to hit Shift Ctrl N. Shift Ctrl N. Okay? Right here on this character mask. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a new layer. And you can call this Skin. And then, what's really awesome is when you do that, it automatically clips it back to that mask. Whereas if you were to create a new layer over top of hair, watch what happens. Let's call this eyeballs. Okay? Notice how this one is not clipped back to it. And the reason why it's not clipped back, and you will have to do it again manually, you'll have to click Alt between eyeballs and hair, right, to make it go back and clip back to that. The reason why it doesn't do that is because it's not within the sandwich. It's not within the clipping mask sandwich. Any layer that you drag between hair and character mask will automatically be transported to the clipping mask sandwich. Now let me talk a little bit more about the gift that Santa brings. Okay, so what's really cool about this is So you're going to do the skin. Now what's cool is because it's behind the hair and you did a good job, right? You did a good job on the insides. Now you can be as crazy as you want on the outsides, right? Well, aside from there. But notice how the skin layer just sticks behind the hair. And all you got to watch out for is, you know, at the edges of the chin and the neck. And what's really cool about this is as you go forward with your piece, it just tends to get easier and easier and easier because you're always just kind of bumping up the colors against the other colors that are there, and you're just putting masks almost like behind it, behind it, behind it. And then if you get like little things like this, you know, like little edges like that, you can always go back in and you can kind of clean that stuff up pretty easily. You know, the mistakes and the things that you need to fix will be very apparent as you go forward with it. Okay? So, yeah, I think that's basically it. And let's just do one more example. All right, let's do like the suit. Let's just put some brown on there really quick. And I'll show you once more the masks in action. Okay, so once again, notice how I made the suit layer in between the clipping mask sandwich. So we're good to go. And it's behind the skin. So because we did a good job on the skin, we can freely paint, you know, all of this, right? And then it only shows up where we want it to be. Okay? And then you can go crazy on the edges, right? Because we know we're not going to go out of the lines. We're not going to go out of the outside silhouette of this character. And I mean, that's just kind of like a way that I like to work with. You can also, I mean, you're more than welcome to, you know, you can paint this brown, right? And then you can come back in with the skin on the skin layer and be like, oh, well, hey, I need to paint her arm, right? And it's really easy to just kind of do that because, you know, her skin layer is already on top of the brown. And you can work from bottom to top. You don't have to necessarily just keep going back and back and back. But it's just good to understand that as you make masks for color, it just gets easier and easier as you go along. But one of the biggest things that I really didn't enjoy doing was just the initial mask, the initial silhouette, the initial character mask. So I hope that that sheds some light on that and helps you out. So now let's move into the next part, and I'll kind of put I'll put my layers just kind of one after the other, and you can see how I layered it in the final piece. And then we'll kind of wrap it up, and we'll call it good. We've been going for about 25 minutes, so that's perfect. Perfect. Okay, so the first thing I started with is the cannon. I want to hear the cannon. Okay, so the cannon is up first, and you notice, see how messy it is? It's like, oh, we went out of the lines everywhere, but it doesn't matter because as we go up forward, you're going to notice we're going to be layering, or we're going to be setting the layers one on top of the other. Okay, so next up was the hair. See, I almost did it backwards this way. I put the hair behind the skin, so the skin sits in front of the hair. Okay, see, watch, see, so the skin goes right over top of that hair, and it just sits right on top of it. Easy, no? Teeth, again, go over top of the skin, like that. Eyes, blue right up, all in there, all up in there. And tongue, pants were up next. There you go, they're just kind of gray. Silver and gold, silver and gold. Lenses, the gem, the magical spiral gem, the trim, belt, the bullets, the glow. What's glow? What is, oh, glow is what was happening within the gun, within Jagan, and then the suit sits over top of everything. So that's basically how far we go as far as that. And the really cool thing is, guys, is you'll notice that, you know, there's all this shading and stuff going on in there, but really all it is, for example, let me show you what happens on the skin. Once you create your clipping masks, let's say that the arm just looked like this at the beginning, right? See, that's, whoops. Whoops! Let's try that again. Okay, so let's say that the arm looked like that at the beginning, right? Another thing that I really want to talk to you guys about, an important tool, is this little button right here. This button straight down here is the Lock Transparent Pixels button. So basically, after you create your mask, you must make sure that you click this. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to go in to start painting things, and your mask is already going to start basically appearing over anything that it is in front of, right? So it's in front of the hair, it's in front of the cannon, and all that stuff, and it's going to mess you up. It will mess you up. So make sure you click this Lock Transparent Pixels button. And then what I really like to do is I like to go through here, and then shading becomes as simple as literally just like picking your color, right? Like I just alt clicked that right there. That's brought up my eyedropper. Pick that color, and then you can just lay it in, right? You just start laying stuff in however you want it to be, and you can start lighting your character. Isn't that awesome? And then you don't have to worry about going out of the lines of those masks. It makes it oh so enjoyable. Oh, so enjoyable. And that's basically how I go through and mask the entire character, because I've created the masks already, right? And then I just lock the transparent pixels, and then I can start painting, you know, just within that thing. I will only affect that mask, okay? And that's why it's good to set up your layers properly. See? Here, let me use a more crazy color. Let's go ahead and turn our entire hair pink, just so I can show you. Okay, so let's say, oh, okay, you're now going to be Rocket Girl Tristana, or I mean, Riot Girl Tristana. So let's go ahead and paint her hair pink. And see how easy that was? Like, we already did it. We basically just did it. Granted, it is a little bit lower quality, but it's there. It's there, right? And that's why I really like managing my layers. I like managing my masks to the point where it's so easy to just go back in and change them and alter them to whatever color or shading type of thing I want. All right, let's go and put a nice heavy light there. Looks good, yeah. Looks good, yeah. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk to you guys about before we wrap this thing up is a little secret that I like to call painting the lines. And again, we are going to be utilizing this awesome button right here. This is probably one of my favorite buttons in the entire Photoshop thing. And it's a shame that it's so small. They should just make it like half the screen so it reminds you of its importance. Okay, so what we're going to move on to is coloring the lines, right? This is what the picture looks out without the lines. It's like, what, Tristana, what happened to you? You used to be so much more beautiful. What happened? All right, so anyway, you have your lines, okay? And then we're going to use that special button. Once again, we're going to lock the transparent pixels, which basically means that we can no longer paint lines. We can no longer paint extra lines. Now all we're doing is we're painting the lines that already exist there. So for example, let's say, okay, I just want to paint all the lines blue. Let's just fill the entire thing. Like even if you hit edit, fill on the lines layer, watch what happens. It fills everything but just where the lines exist because you've locked all the other transparent pixels. Genius! But we don't want to make them all blue. But what this does open up is a lot of avenues for you to experiment, and like basically what I like to think about is whatever color the line is working with, like say it's the hair, right? I like to color the lines a darker color or a darker version of whatever color is next to it, right? So it's like pink hair, so you get dark red lines, right? You can even go like this, you know, kind of darkish red lines. Blue skin, I wouldn't go necessarily dark blue. I'd probably go like a dark purple. I think that's what I ended up doing anyway. Because when you mix red in with whatever it is you're painting, it just tends to make it look a little bit more alive. So blue plus red equals purple. Hey! You're only going to learn this stuff on the KNKL show, folks. All right. But yeah, notice how small the changes are too. Notice how small the changes are that you're actually making. But, however, when you color the lines, even such a subtle thing as from that to that, notice how it makes the gem look a little bit more like glowy. It makes it look more alive, and it makes it look less lame, I don't know, less amateur, because amateurs do not know how to paint their lines. So if you want to look professional, all you have to do is just slap some color on your lines and people will think you're pro. Okay? So that is my bit of advice for the evening. Anyway, so yeah, again, it's just painting darker versions of the color that is next to it. Okay? Darker versions of whatever color is existing next to it. And you'll find that your colors and your pictures will start to take on a new sort of life to them, just because you started painting the lines. And then another really cool thing is that you'll notice very quickly, you'll be able to almost like see the picture without the lines in a way, because most of the time when I want to get rid of lines or make them less noticeable in a painting. Painting the lines a color is one of the first steps that I'll do. And then, and this is going to segue into the next big thing, the next part. Then what I like to do is I like to do overpaint layers, okay? So let's go ahead and get rid of this stuff, and let's move on to the final piece, okay? And I'll kind of talk you through what I have done here. Or can I? I think that might be on another file. Let's see here. Let me make sure we got the right thing here. Tristana 4. In the meantime, please cast your questions over the cast walls, and I'll answer them, send them back to you on a bed of rice, all that good stuff. Okay, where is the... Please tell me we have some paint over layers on this one. I think we do. I think we do. Okay, we need to get rid of the embers and all that stuff. Or maybe we don't. Gosh dang it. Alright, well, I'll just do it again. I'll just show you how I do it. Okay, so basically I want you guys to look at the differences between this right here and this right here. In fact, I'll move this over a little bit so you can see the differences in the face. So notice what I've done here is a couple things. I've actually gone back in, and this is what I like to do. This is like one of the final things that I'll do. Is I'll go over top of everything in the old, in this right here. Like say this is my piece that I'm working on. I'll make a new layer over top of everything, including the lines, and I'll call it the OP layer. And I call it this because it is in fact overpowered. And then what I do is I go in and I begin overpainting things. And this is what I was talking about before, where you can start to almost get rid of your lines in some areas, right? Because in some spots I've like really lightened them, especially where the light is hitting here. But most of the time what I really like to do is I like to just add little effects, right? So I'll just come back through here with my little eyedrop tool. You know, I'll be painting and I'll just eyedrop that white color there. I'll just do little things like adding in, you know, like little hair things coming out, or little fly-offs, whatever you want to call them. Just little details, right? And also another thing that I like to do is I like to come in here and I really like to blend and kind of soften the face and make sure that everything is working, and almost like creating lines just by contrast, just by the contrast that exists with the colors. I like to create lines without them actually being there, if that makes sense. In some ways. I mean, it's more prevalent, it's more useful in like a splash image type thing. But here's a good example. Because obviously there's still lines in the final drawing, but here's a good example. Like with the eyes, right? You can only get so much color with the overlay being there, right? But you can come back in here, you can lay in like the super bright green, and then you can do stuff like this. You can just take this white, and you can create a little highlight on the eye like that. And this is basically what overpainting layers are for. You just basically go through and you pull out like the exact color that you want to see there. As well as kind of cleaning up little edges in here, like this little thing. You can kind of get rid of that. And this will go into the final point that I want to make to you guys when you're doing pictures like this, is don't necessarily get so hung up on everything looking perfect. Because even in the final, and I want to show you guys this right after this. Okay, one more thing that I'll do. Like, look, see, I'll just like add in a little bit of light there, right? See, I just go in and I just paint it in. Just paint it in, and I just paint things away, soften things up, blending. This is what the OP layer is for. It's just for cleaning things up, making them look all nice and dandy and happy and all that good stuff. Okay, so anyway, so now we land ourselves with, let's just go ahead and go back to how it was open. Okay, so basically what I want you guys to understand is make sure you're always asking yourself, how big are the viewers going to be viewing this picture at, right? Or like, you know, and the reason why I ask this is because, you know, I'm expecting people to be seeing Tristana at this size, right? So I'm not really sweating a lot of the details, right? Because watch what happens if you zoom into 100%. There's still a lot of, like, this is not very clean, right? It's not perfect. There's lots of like textures and things happening in here. And I think that there's actually something good about this. There's something about the style that I actually really like. And I feel like there's certain things that working in a slightly more rough style, there's certain things that it gives you that you can't necessarily get when you just clean everything up and everything's just pristine and everything's all just like hyper rendered and everything. I feel like you really lose a certain type of character or like the rawness of it, right? I like my raw foods, like sushi, right? You can't over prepare, you can't overcook sushi, otherwise it's not sushi anymore. So you might want to call it sushi art. All right, so all right, moving into questions. Moving into questions, and then we're done. Oh, one more thing I will tell you guys about, a little trick, a little cool trick, is the way I like to create this shadow back here is basically I'll take my character, right? You can do the same thing with a character mask, but in this case it's just the character, like after I've flattened everything. Oh, and that's the other thing I want to talk to you guys about, is notice how Tristana at this point is actually all just on one layer. I've actually flattened everything. But I did save my old lines as well as my old masks, right? In case I needed to go back, like heaven forbid something terrible happens and I need to go back. But eventually I really like to just flatten things because part of layer management is really just simplifying. It's all about just keeping things simple. And I think that's really important. Okay, so when you flatten your character like this and you want to make a shadow of it, all you have to do is duplicate that character, hit Ctrl U or Hue tool, bring that lightness all the way down, so now it's a black silhouette. Then you're going to place that behind your character. Then you're going to hit the magical thing called Ctrl T. Ctrl T for timeout. Okay? And then you're going to Control click this thing right here. You're going to drag it down. Like so. Whoa! Like that. Okay, just move that up so it meets the foot. And oftentimes you'll notice, you know, there's a little bit of like a hovering effect going on there. So all I have to do is right click, go to warp, and you can drag that shadow right back up so it meets the foot. Then you can lower the opacity of that layer. And then boom! There's your easy shadow. Letting the computer do the work for you. I love it! Okay, moving on to a couple questions and then we're done. Oh, people are asking about how do I get the granular texture in a lot of stuff. The way I'm doing this is I'm working with my chalk brush, and I should have told you guys about that. And I'll do a little quick show of that brush for you. And you can download all my brushes for free on DeviantArt. People watching on YouTube, the link is always in the description. But let me show you basically what I used to do. I used to work with this type of brush, right? So you'd like have to do this, and if you wanted to blend something, you'd have to kind of like do this, and you know, it's just really annoying. But what's really cool about the chalk brush is not only is it awesome, but it just automatically creates this awesome texture with whatever you do, right? And then when you blend it, it just makes it so much easier to blend, okay? And that's what you're seeing. That granular texture is just me shading and coloring with the chalk brush. In fact, this entire painting was created with this brush alone. The sketch, the masks were done with the ink, you know, but the coloring and all this texture is all made with this brush. So, if you like that, try it out for yourselves, and I think you will be amazed. Okay. Oh, someone's asking about another tutorial on skin. I would actually like to do another tutorial on skin. I think that there's a few older tutorials that I think we could benefit from revisiting. Last question and then we're done. Sorry, I will not be able to get to everybody's questions. Oh, good question coming in from Debs. He's asking, how do you choose which lines to be colored and which ones you don't color? Which lines should be colored and which ones don't get colored? Really, the biggest thing that I think about is how bright are the colors that are existing around it. Like you'll notice on this side of the hair, it's very dark brown, but then up where the light is hitting it, it looks really nice to color the lines themselves a brighter color. Same thing with over here, right? See, look at these dark brown colors that are happening within the suit, right? But where the light hits it, I paint it like a lighter brown. And there's something about when you do this, and try it for yourself, it's awesome. It just makes it look like, it looks like the light is really affecting the character, and it looks realistic, as opposed to, even though it's line, right? Even though it's line, it's kind of cartoony, it just looks more believable, and something about it is very, very natural, and it looks good to the eyes, easy on the eyes, and we all love that, right? Especially in our women. Alrighty, people, we're going to end today's show. Thank you once again for joining me live on Twitch. For those of you on YouTube, thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. My name is Skinner Lafferty. Need epic outro music. Oh no, I didn't pull it up. Okay, you guys have a great Tuesday, and I'll see you tomorrow. Till then, you guys take care.